So what are some alternative jobs for real estate agents? I think real estate agents is a great business. I was actually a real estate agent when I was putting myself through law school, and I thought it was wonderful, but it's not something that I wanted to do as my full-time, lifelong career. For some really obvious reasons. I mean, first of all, it tended to be a little bit of feast and famine, often depending on what the market was. When the market was great, like for example, for me, it's very seasonal. So during the spring and summer, it was really great. Sold lots of houses, made lots of money. But starting in the fall, things slowed down. And by like late October, they were kind of dead and they didn't start up again until February or March. So I didn't like that aspect to it. I think that there are also a lot of people that tend to pour into the business when things are good and they sort of ruin everything because there's so many real estate agents, like everybody who wants a little part-time side hustle dives in. So I think they're better things for a talented person to do. And if you're in real estate and you want to stay in real estate, I'll give you a couple of options for that. Or if you're just in sales and you're really strong in sales, I'll give you some other options for that. So let's start with real estate. I think if you're in real estate and you're an agent, you're very familiar with the market. A great transition to make is to be a real estate investor or syndicator or developer. And an example of that, we had a guy named Alan Dom in Philadelphia that when I was young, Alan Dom was self-styled the condo king. And boy, was he ever the condo king. And condos back then in downtown Philadelphia were very unpopular and they were very cheap. And Alan Dom controlled the whole market in that. There are these little condos that were like $40,000 a piece. But Alan was a machine and he's just if you wanted a condo to sell it or buy it, that was the guy you went through. And Alan kind of was the grinder with that for a long time, doing okay, making a living, but not really making a lot of money with it, meaning not big money. What he parlayed that into, though, was being a condo developer and owner, an investor. So he was the guy because he knew the market so well that when a building would flop, then Alan was the guy they would call in, and he got a reputation for knowing what things were worth, knowing what they needed to look like, how they needed to be fixed up. And as he built that reputation, he got the ability to raise money. He got the connections to the people who did the renovations, and he became a real estate developer and fabulously successful. And he also started doing conversions, meaning taking office buildings that were amenable to being apartments or condominiums and converting them. And he built a little empire. And the guy's a really bright, hardworking guy. And he built a good team and he built this really amazing business. But what he did was he used that leverage that he had in both people's minds, meaning Alan knows the condo market like nobody, which he did, and those connections he made. And he parlayed that into being a principal in the deals rather than just a realtor working for commission on a $40,000 sale, which is not a big commission because you're splitting those commissions. Back then was probably 6% commission. So that's $2,400 that's being split between him and another agent. And if he had a broker, even split further. So it's, nobody's getting rich with that. But he built that reputation and he levered over to that. And if you're a real estate agent, that's something to think about. Take the market that you really know, and you may look at starting out as a micro developer, meaning maybe flipping houses where you can recognize a good deal. You can say, hey, these houses go for $500,000 in this neighborhood all day. This one's distressed. It's in bad shape and they really just want to sell it. Maybe it's part of an estate where they just want to dump it. I pick it up for $200,000 and this is great. And you'll have contacts and you're also, credible as a person and say, yeah, it's worth $500,000 fixed. Here's what it needs to be. Here's the people that can do the work and I can get this done. And you'll be able to even raise money. Your money may start with friends and family money or may start with the broker that you work with. But if you put the deal together, you'll have the credibility. And credibility is the most important thing that you can have in business. Because people say, yeah, I understand, Sally can do that because she knows the market. She's been selling houses here for 5 years or 10 years. I believe it. And people will put up money for that if you can show them it's a good deal. So you could be a micro developer. You could also start to expand from there. If you're doing apartments, for example, if you're an agent that rents a lot of apartments and you find an apartment building for sale, again, you could go into your connections, the people and say, I can buy this apartment. Here's the work that it needs. The landscaping looks terrible. The pool's in disrepair. I got estimates for all those things. And I put this under contract. I can buy it for, $60,000 a unit and fixed up, these things are worth $100,000 a unit. And, right now it's got a 20% vacancy because of the condition, but everything else in the neighborhood is 95% occupied. And this isn't renting because it's in poor shape and has a poor reputation, but I can turn that around. And you can build a really nice empire with that. So I think for a real estate agent, think about shifting over into the side of being a principal. I think that's really a good shift. And what you want to do is leverage your reputation, leverage your knowledge, and then you can really do well with that. Other things you can do as an agent is you can go and work for a developer. If you have developers that need help in their marketing side, it's a natural fit for you as an agent to come in and help them develop their marketing materials, develop their relationships with brokers and agents so they bring people in, coordinate your team that does the showings and your team that does the decoration of the house, that does the staging. You could go into that. So if you want to be more of an employee and less of a feast and famine person, work for a good, strong local developer. And again, you're going to leverage your experience and credibility as an agent to do that. Other things you can do that are just other forms of kind of the same work that a real estate agent does. You could work in the transaction side, meaning someone else sells the house, gets it under contract with the buyer and seller, and the transaction coordinator attends to all the details. Gets the payoffs, coordinates the settlement, makes sure that the seller knows, bring the keys to settlement, and shut off the utilities and all those things. So you can do that. You can be a rental agent, meaning you can rent out apartments and things like that. I don't tend to love that business. I think that it's kind of a low margin business that doesn't get a lot of respect. So I don't love that business. If I were going to do that, I would probably go to work for a large developer that owns a lot of apartments, and I would work inside their organization with the mind of learning how that business works and working my way up in the business, or maybe being an apartment developer yourself someday and manager. I would make that plan. You could also think about shifting to the commercial side of the business. Commercial real estate has a lot of money in it if you're in a good area, because commercial properties obviously have much higher sale prices. Commercial properties start in the millions and sometimes go up from there. It could be hundreds of millions of dollars for commercial real estate. If you're in the right location where there's a lot of business activity, a lot of businesses coming into the area, you can really crush it with that kind of business. Like, I have friends who are commercial real estate brokers and agents in Miami and Austin and other growing cities, and they just print money. And they do that because their business is coming in all the time. They're developers that are developing new places that need to be marketed. And I would say a commercial real estate agent is for someone who's very business-minded, who identifies and can communicate well with national tenants, meaning places that develop warehouses, places that place McDonald's and Burger Kings and other stores and national tenants. And if you speak their language, you can do really, really well, because you get a place that comes in and says, well, we're looking for a dozen new locations in the city over the next year. You get that person as a customer, and you may sell 12 multi-million-dollar listings to them. So that can be a great way. That is for a person, though, who is business-oriented, who communicates well and sees themselves in that setting. It is not, in my view, anything to do in a shrinking place or a place with very little transaction activity. If you're dealing in a place that is just dying and not doing well and people are moving out, that is not the place to be working as a commercial real estate agent, because a lot of times the commercial property owners don't want to sell for less than they bought for. You may have a property that someone bought for $10 million, but today is worth $6 million because it's a shrinking population. They may not even be able to sell because they owe too much to the mortgage company. So that's not your place to be. That's a thing for a growing company. So let's shift gears here, because I also said I would talk about your sales skills and how that might come into play. Now, you may find that real estate is not the thing that you want to sell, even though you're really good at sales. And people that are good at sales are typically people that are good at relationships, people that are good at communicating effectively with other people, at getting them to move, and people that really seek to serve their customer. And maybe real estate just not the right vertical or thing for you to be selling. And what I would say there is think about other things that you have an interest in that you could sell. Like, I'll give an example. I like precious metals. I like gold. I like silver. I like gold more, but I like precious metals. So if I were looking for a sales job, one thing I would consider is just going into precious metals. Why? Because I believe in them. I think the precious metals, because, unlike money, where it just gets printed and printed and printed, and politicians have kind of an irresistible attraction to keep promising things to voters, and then they can just print the money, it's kind of irresistible. They're going to keep printing money, which causes inflation. And then things like gold, become more valuable over time. And we've seen that. You've seen it over time. And we think about way, way back in time, when they made the ownership of gold by private citizens illegal in it was the late 1920s or very early 1930s. I forget the exact date. But they set the price at $35 an ounce. Today, price of gold is about $3,500 an ounce. So, it's literally 100 times that. And that's not because gold has gotten harder to find or anything like that. If anything, we're more sophisticated and effective at extracting gold these days. The reason for it is they just keep printing money. So, gold tends to hold its value. So for me, just with my personal philosophy, and yours could be anything you want, but because I'm not here to argue about gold. But what I'm saying, because I feel a connection with that, I would feel really good about talking to people that I knew, friends, neighbors, business acquaintances, even strangers on the internet, about why I think investing in gold is a good idea. It's a hedge against inflation. It's historically gone up in value. They're not making more of it. It's irresistible for politicians to keep printing more money. And, that's just good for all those reasons. I think everybody should have some gold. Am I saying be a gold bug, 100% of gold? No, heck no. Because, it's hard to spend gold. I mean, you can't go to the supermarket and buy with an ounce of gold. That doesn't really work. But should people have some gold in their portfolio? Absolutely yes. I would also like that because people I would be talking to were people with some money. They're looking for investments, and I like that. I mean, I deal with my main business with people that are really struggling, which is wonderful. I love helping them. But it'd be nice to have a little change of pace where you have some people that had money that's looking for good investments and then selling them something I believe in. So I would say for you, if you're really good at sales and that attracts you, then look for something that you are attracted to, you feel kinship with, and you feel really good about representing. And then, most important, work for the best organization that delivers and delivers and delivers. If you're representing an organization, you want to represent someone that is the height of excellence. They just do an amazing job in the execution. And I'll give you a quick example of that. So in my community where I live, there's not particularly accessible emergency health care. The nearest emergency room that you'd really want to go to is 30 minutes away, which is too far. So I got together with some guys and we put together an emergency service where it's basically in a private emergency room that's 5 minutes from our community. And the idea is if someone's having a heart attack or a stroke or a major injury, like bleeding injury, they can go and get stabilized and then have time to get to the higher level trauma center. And we did this because someone died in my community because they couldn't get care in time. So that was what prompted me to do this. And I said, hey, I know a lot of people in the community. I'll take responsibility for getting support. You're raising money to put this together and getting people to join in a membership basis so we can operate it all the time. And that's what I did. And I felt great about taking the sales role in that because first of all, we need this. We had a guy who died because he didn't have it. So we need it, I need it, my neighbors need it, and I do not want another person not making it because they couldn't get care. I felt great about it. And so I did it. I got 100 people to be members. It took me 3 meetings that I organized just by talking to people that I know. 3 meetings done, and I felt great about that. So I would suggest follow that model. Do something you feel great about, do something you feel a reason to support, and then go all in on that. And I think you take those sales skills. So if you're going to switch out of real estate, that would be my suggestion for that. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully these thoughts gave you some ideas, some food for thought, and will help get you to your next place and to hopefully a great success. So this is attorney Bob Diamond wishing you all the best. If you have follow-up questions or want more conversation, put them down below. My staff and I go through there periodically, kind of pull the questions out and use those for ideas for new videos. Just so you may find that your question will be answered in a new video, because if we get a question and we say, oh, that's a great question, or a couple of people ask it, then I do my best to make some videos, and then hopefully you can see more answers. So thanks for being here. It's been great being here with you today, and we'll see you next time.